On this episode, we travel to Vicksburg, Mississippi, where an old bridge is closed to pedestrians. We talk with the Superintendent of the Vicksburg Bridge Commission of Warren County. Then we learn about Friends of the Vicksburg Bridge. Finally, we meet a community health advocate who wants people to walk on the bridge. Stay tuned.
We're in Vicksburg, Mississippi, talking with Herman Smith. What's your connection with this bridge behind us?
I'm the superintendent of the Vicksburg Bridge Commission of Warren County. Warren County is the owner, and we are enabled with maintaining it and running it.
What's the history of this bridge?
Well, in 1926, a guy named Harry Beauvais came up with the idea he wanted to put up a highway bridge, at least to get car traffic over, and then at some point he decided to put railroad traffic as well, because there used to be a very large ferry system just north of the bridge where it is now that ferried train cars back and forth, and then there was another ferry for automobiles at the time. So he came up with the idea and started getting federal legislation to get it approved through the U.S. Department of Interior.
And looks like he succeeded.
He did. In 1928, he let out a contract, let out the bids and got the contract with a engineering firm. They designed it and started in 1928 building it. In 1930, last week of April 1930, they opened up the bridge to highway traffic, automobiles, and in the first week of May, rail traffic started flowing across it.
That was a long time ago. It seems there isn't auto traffic on it anymore. What happened?
Well, he started having issues with there's a fault line right up above to the east of the Pier 2, which is where we are now. The fault line started moving, pier started moving, so within just a few years he was in bankruptcy. And then in 1947, Warren County bought it out of bankruptcy and established the Vicksburg Bridge Commission, and it ran under tolls until it was paid for in 1969, and highway traffic stayed on. In 1973, the Interstate 20 bridge opened up, and so mostly just local traffic is all that used it after that point. And in 1998, it closed for some repairs to the road deck on the Louisiana side, and after that, the Louisiana Department of Transportation didn't want to allow traffic on or off the bridge on the Louisiana side, so it stayed closed and has been closed ever since to public traffic.
And if you aren't going to let automobiles over it, what else could you do with it?
Well, the we've had a special events policy in place since 1999, 2000, that allows special events, runs, bicycle events, walks across the bridge. We average at least 6 every year, especially starting in September and October and November when it cools off, because out here during the summertime it's sometimes unbearable. So there has been a push in recent years to establish a pedestrian and bicycle pathway, and that's ongoing right now and getting a lot closer as it was beforehand. We finally got the supervisors with the county had issued the Bridge Commission a notice to try to do whatever is possible to open it up. So one of the first things the Bridge Commission did, along with the county's attorney, is contact the state attorney general and get an opinion as to the funds and opening up the bridge, whose authority it could be done under, and different things like that. So the push right now is to open it up as a pedestrian pathway and bicycles.
Is that sort of a little different than the Bridge Commission would have seen its mission when it was first formed many decades ago, that they'd be running a pedestrian bicycle path?
Yeah, that obviously wasn't established in the time, even though it's been in the original wording in the original contracts that pedestrians were an expected thing, bicycles were probably as well, but of course you never think a bridge is ever going to close for any reason, And but anyway, after the interstate bridge opened up, it wasn't anything that big heavy trucks. Our road deck is only 18 feet wide, so it has two 9-foot lanes. In 1930, a Model T is about 4.5 feet wide, so that was plenty of room for those. They never anticipated things like 18-wheelers or cars and trucks growing to 8 feet, 8.5 feet. So it makes it difficult to pass, and when they were having 18-wheelers on the bridge, when it got to that point, they would literally have to slow down, pull the mirrors in to keep from getting them knocked off. But the mission of the commission has always been to maintain the bridge and its properties. That's what we're designated to do, and that's what we have been doing. If a park becomes part of it, then that would be just an addition to. It's not as much being done anymore, but we still have repairs on the bridge and the railroad at the same time. So that's just one of the things that the commission's done ever since it's been in existence, is maintain the bridge and the properties.
Now, what's the relation between the commission that owns the bridge and the railroad that runs trains over it?
Well, the railroad is a leasee. They lease the rights to run across it, which is on the railroad portion of the bridge, which is separate of the highway, and that's their designation, that portion of the bridge. Now, they're tasked with maintaining the tracks, but the Bridge Commission actually owns the tracks and the timbers and everything, because they seek out, when it's time for make the repairs, they contact the commission and tell us what they want done and submit an invoice and the expected repairs and what it costs. And the commission approves it after that fact, and then when the repairs are done, we pay back the railroad. So the railroad tracks, grading, timbers, everything that's over there still is owned by the Bridge Commission.
And has having a railroad on the bridge complicated having pedestrians' bikes on the bridge?
Absolutely. Yeah, the railroad doesn't want any full-time people out here at all, because it's a safety issue to them, and it's an understandable position in certain cases. Things can be put into place to protect people, keep people from getting to the railroad and railroad stuff getting towards people, but they're fighting it pretty hard, so they're definitely opposed to it.
What do you see as the future? Seems like you've been getting almost everybody on board. What do you anticipate? Will you be able to just tourists to Vicksburg and just walk across the river anytime?
Time-wise, that's kind of up in the air. That's going to all be affected by the railroad and their stance, how far they were willing to carry their stance, how much we have to deal with them on that. Don't know if it'll ever have to go to court, and if it does, we don't know how long it'll be in court. But we know that they're opposed to it, and they've made many letters and statements opposing it. So it's just a matter of how long it will take to get them, one way or the other, to agree to it.
Are there any examples of places where trains and pedestrians, bicyclists do share a bridge?
There are quite a few of them across the United States, mostly in the northwest and the northeast. There's UP, Union Pacific Railroad, has several bridges like that. And there's a bridge in Memphis called the Harahan Bridge that opened up about 2 years ago, I believe, that runs two sets of tracks in the middle and has a road deck on either side of the bridge. And that's probably the latest, greatest one anyway. I can't remember what they call it, Great River Crossing or something like that in Memphis, but very newest example of that, and Union Pacific welcomed it. So we wish that could happen here, but it doesn't look like it right now anyway.
We're talking with Buddy Dees, who's with Friends of the Vicksburg Bridge. What is Friends of the Vicksburg Bridge?
John, Friends of the Vicksburg Bridge is an informal citizen action group to promote the opening of the Vicksburg Bridge here right along Interstate 20, where Vicksburg connects over to Louisiana, to open that up for recreational purposes. Since 1998, the road decking that we're standing on now, the actual road decking, has been unutilized. No cars, no trucks. It's been closed to traffic. And right beside you and over your shoulders, the viewers can see, is a railroad track that is part of this bridge. The entire bridge is owned by Warren County. In Mississippi, there are 82 counties, and Warren County is unique. It actually owns this bridge, constructed in 1930, all the way across the Mississippi River to the Louisiana side. And the Board of Supervisors is governed by 5 individuals. A Board of Supervisors has 5 people on it. And the Board of Supervisors, by law, has delegated the maintenance of this bridge, the painting and repairs and all that of this bridge, to a 5-member bridge commission. Vicksburg Bridge Commission is another 5 individuals. So the Bridge Commission maintains the bridge, allows access to it, with veto power residing with the Warren County Board of Supervisors. And where we are at this point is the Warren County Board of Supervisors in June of 2018 passed a resolution directing the 5-member Bridge Commission to take whatever steps the Bridge Commission deems necessary to open this road deck that we're standing on for recreational use by bicyclists and by pedestrians. The bridge, of course, is entirely owned by Warren County, which includes the railroad tracks. The railroad tracks are owned by Warren County and leased under a 1928 lease to the railroad. So the county maintains the railroad tracks, and since 1930, the railroad trains have continued to go back and forth across these tracks that are leased from the county. And since 1998, so about 20 years, the road decking has stood unutilized, except for special events about 6 times a year. They'll have bicyclists crossing over the bridge for cancer benefits. They have bras across the river where they literally put up bras across the span for breast cancer. They'll have wheelchairs and people coming out. We have a United Way fundraiser here coming up in just earlier this month, later this month in September of 2018. The United Way is having a supper out here where people walk and stroll on the bridge, and those are special events that the Bridge Commission authorizes. But now the Bridge Commission has been directed to see about opening this 365 days a year during daylight hours to pedestrians and bicyclists. And of course the bridge would need to be retrofitted with a screen, much like the Harahan Bridge has a screen in Memphis, Tennessee, to separate the pedestrians from the railroad. The railroad would continue to operate concurrently with pedestrians and people enjoying this for recreational purposes. So that's what the Friends of the Vicksburg Bridge hopes to see, and we were very glad that the Warren County Board of Supervisors directed the Bridge Commission to take steps to open up the bridge for recreational use. This road decking is 9 feet wide of just concrete that's sitting here unutilized, and the footprint of people with sneakers coming across here or bicycles would be a very light footprint on the bridge in terms of maintenance, certainly a lot less than the vehicles that formerly came across this bridge. So it's a great asset. It's a tremendous vista, as John can see, looking across the Mississippi River. And we have the Vicksburg Military Park here, and our thought is that Park Service employees could be out here in the middle of the bridge pointing out to the right the high bluffs of the city of Vicksburg, where Ulysses Grant laid siege to the city of Vicksburg, and the city of Vicksburg surrendered on July 4, 1863. And Grant laid siege to Vicksburg on 3 sides, the 4th side being the river. And boats could not go up and down the Mississippi River because the Confederate forces on top of the bluffs would be shooting at those boats. And as Abraham Lincoln said, Vicksburg is the Gibraltar of the Confederacy. Once it's the key. Once we have that key in our pocket, we can divide the Confederacy in half with the Mississippi River. And so there are tableaus and pictures that can be put up along the bridge where you can see from the bridge and look back at the fortifications that are still present. There are cannons. The Vicksburg National Military Park is a huge park, similar to Gettysburg. Those cannons and all those cannon locations would be visible from the bridge at one glance as you look into the bluffs to the right, which is the east side of the Mississippi River. So there are historical stories to be told. There's health and fitness, walking trails that can be connected on either side of the bridge, on the Mississippi side and on the Louisiana side. So, John, we see this as a wonderful vista, a wonderful venue just waiting to be opened. It's sitting here, the concrete is here, it's open. people all the time, tourists, as you came out here, I'm sure you saw tourists wanting to get on the bridge, and there's a sign up currently that says no pedestrians. The bridge is literally locked off now due to some safety concerns that we think can be addressed with the screening and so forth. The bridge could be retrofitted to accommodate pedestrians. All of us have kids and grandkids, and we want it to be safe. Certainly we want to. So that's where we are at this moment in September of 2018.
Okay, you have a good case for why the bridge would be great to have pedestrians on it, for exercise, for history, for everything else. As an advocacy group, you must be delighted that the owner of the bridge has agreed that this is a good idea. What's holding things up?
And frankly, John, you've been all over the country. We're glad to have you here in Vicksburg, Mississippi. John had seen many bridges opened up with pedestrians and rail use concurrently going on side by side, and you've seen more of that than probably anybody in the country personally, and I'm so glad you're here in Vicksburg. A specific answer to your question, right now the Bridge Commission is in the process of setting up dialogue with the railroad that crosses the bridge. It's called Meridian Speedway, LLC, a limited liability company. Meridian Speedway, using some Kansas City Southern trains. So dialogue is going to be set up with the railroad. The railroad has some safety concerns. They understandably want it to be safe for pedestrians because they're moving freight on a train, by the way, that is limited to only 10 miles an hour going across the bridge, which is very helpful. That train's moving at a very slow rate. And the railroad rightfully has some safety concerns about making it very safe for pedestrians. The railroad doesn't want to have some issue or some problem. The tracks are set up so a derailment is highly unlikely. There's some double tracks there. I don't know the technical name for it. Plus, they slow down to 10 miles an hour. And as I alluded to earlier, some heavy industrial screening that's been done, especially, for instance, on the Harahan Bridge in Memphis, Tennessee. And John, I know you've been there, and that's on the subject of another video that you've got. Some heavy screening is right over our shoulder, would screen off or separate the railroad on the one side and the pedestrians on the other. So obviously some retrofitting of the bridge would need to be done, and the railroad frankly has voiced some safety concerns. They've written letters to the local newspaper saying they think it would be somewhat dangerous, that they have some concerns. So our idea is to, when I say our, I'm saying the Friends of the Vicksburg Bridge, coupled with the members of the Bridge Commission, our idea is to sit down with representatives of the railroad, get their input about what kind of safety measures could be put in place that the railroad recommends. We entirely want to take the railroad's recommendations and then see about getting cost studies done. And we've had some studies, the cost of retrofitting the bridge, putting the screens up, whatever netting and so forth, whatever additional barriers to accommodate pedestrians and bicyclists. So the next step is to try to accommodate the very legitimate safety concerns that the railroad does have, and we're really pushing for that. We have people all the time that want to come down this walkway and cross over the bridge. It's 1.6 miles from gate to gate, so a round trip from Mississippi to Louisiana is 3.2 miles, which is a wonderful walk. And people could be free to walk part of that way or all the way, and we envision having maybe some park benches out here, bicycle path. Memphis, I think, is 9 or 10 feet, and we have the luxury of 18 feet of concrete here, so we could have paths for bicycles and separate paths for pedestrians, and then an actual path for golf carts for the elderly, or emergency traffic for any ambulances or anything like that. So we've got 18 feet of concrete, and we're looking forward to hopefully opening that up for recreational use, meaning bicycles and walkers and runners is what we envision.
We're talking with Linda Fondren, who's a community health advocate. What does a community health advocate do?
Well, we work to improve the quality of life for the community by pursuing sustainable opportunities for physical activity and also to educate the community about proper nutrition.
How did you get started in that?
Oh, well, that's a long story. I'll make it short, though. You know, it's a personal issue because I had a family member, my sister actually, who passed away at a very young age. And she wished she had lived her life better, and she was at a very unhealthy weight. And about 6 months after she passed away, I opened up a gym called Shape Up Sisters for women like her who wanted to do better, but did not know how. So that led me on a crusade. I think little did she know that her death would lead me on this crusade to help the community. Because when we check out what's going on in our state and what's going on in our community, we find that the obesity rates are very high. We find out that there's a big percentage of lack of physical activity. There's so many barriers that keep us from getting outdoors and getting a little physical activity. And one happens to be our perception and our emotions. It is race, it is discrimination, it is safety. So many of these things need to be addressed in order for us to put physical activity at the top of our list. Right now, it is at the bottom of people's list of what's important for them.
But it's really a matter of life and death, though.
Yes, it is. However, it's like that definition of health is a very broad definition, and some people think that health just simply means not being sick. And so people don't consider themselves to be sick. They're not feeling any symptoms, so therefore they don't feel a need to get to it right away. And that's what's wrong. That perception is wrong. So we really need to educate the people a lot more about, let's say, health literacy and what it all means. It's a very broad definition, and it's really about the ability to have choices, the ability to find meaning in life, and to continue to grow. And in order to do that, we need to be physically fit and eat healthier.
And where does walking fit into all that?
Oh, walking. I am wearing a shirt that says, Shape Up Vicksburg, Get Healthy Walking Club. So a while back ago, I issued this challenge to the community to lose weight. It was really about raising awareness about getting more physical activity. When I did that, I found out the easiest way to get people to get up and move was to introduce a walking club. A walking club helps people become more social. It helps people get outdoors. They're with their friends. They start discussing, their issues, their children, and what they can do. So people began to see like-minded people, and that makes them more in tune to say, hey, I'm not alone. So people will come out and join the walks, and some people have met their best friends, and they come back again and again. So it's that social element, and that walking club, it helps that. And so on the back of the shirts, they're like branded. It says, walking is cheap, life is priceless. And to show you how important that is with this brand, because they wear them all the time throughout the community, a t-shirt you just don't throw away. With this fellow that was in Walmart, one of the ladies had that shirt on. He said to her, you know what, ma'am? Life is priceless. My wife has cancer. So you see, it's about raising that awareness and prompting actions, and these t-shirts are like a brand. The other part of it is we sponsor races, 5K races. We got one coming up that's called Over the River Run. The t-shirt is like your ticket to get into those races. There are many people that cannot afford to get into those races. There's many people that want to maybe walk across this bridge. However, they can't get out there on the bridge. Well, if you're in that race, you're able to go out and take a stroll, whether it's 10 minutes, whether it's 1 mile, and you can come right back. But at least you got to do something as opposed to nothing.
So where does this bridge fit into getting people in Vicksburg to walk more?
This bridge is like a psychological boost for our community. To be able to walk out across the Mississippi River, are you kidding? This bridge is, battles took place on that water. Not only that, I think we have Memphis this way, New Orleans that way, just to get out and look at this beautiful scenery and watch the traffic up and down. It's a matter of getting outdoors. Not only is this a psychological boost for our area, but as you know, it is definitely economic development. So when we do that, we're bringing tourists to our community. So therefore, we're able to generate revenues that can help us with some of the health issues we face. Maybe that can help us put more walking trails around existing neighborhood parks. We have 16 of them here, and a lot of them, if you put walking trails around those parks in that neighborhood, it can make adults feel safe about bringing their children outside. Maybe it would help light one of those parks where they will feel safe going outside with their children again, maybe at nighttime. So opening this bridge has many benefits, and economic development is a big one, tourism is a big one, but more important, a psychological boost for our community, raising up that civic pride.
Visit us on the internet at www.pedestrians.org.